all of the institutions in a democracy in Europe, the United States, Australia, that were set up in order to protect vulnerable little children from greedy corporations have been neutralized. So the agencies that are supposed to protect us from and protect our children from, from bad products have been completely co-opted. They're what you call captive agencies, and that's done through a number of mechanisms. The European Health Agency, 50% of its budget comes from pharma. The CDC is now one of the biggest vaccine makers in the world, or sellers in the world, distributors. The CDC distributes $4.9 billion worth of vaccines a year, so about half of its budget goes to distributing vaccines, and basically it is integrated with the industry, FDA.
So it has a conflict of interest, the CDC, by nature.
Conflict. Also, the CDC, FDA, and NIH all own vaccine patents.
How is that possible? That
every vial of Gardasil that is sold, money goes to NIH, and those agencies are making tens of millions of dollars a year selling the vaccines they're supposed to be regulating. FDA gets 50% of its budget from pharmaceutical companies.
How is that possible? Isn't it
the World Health Organization gets over 50% of its budget from pharmaceutical companies, if from industry, let's put it that way. If you include Bill Gates, it's even more than that, which is 10% of $1 out of every $10 comes from Gates, who is the biggest vaccine producer and maker in the world. Oh,
the FDA always seems like
so you have a conflict with the agencies. You then have Congress has been bought off because pharmaceutical companies spend double what the next biggest lobbyist spends on Congress. But most importantly is the press. The pharmaceutical industry in the United States, it used to be illegal for them to advertise pharmaceuticals on TV like it is in every other country in the world except for New Zealand.
Including the UK. Including the UK, you don't see that. I mean, Robert, when I go to America, I'm shocked. There's a 2-minute ad for some drug I've never heard of. It's colorful, there are models, they're outdoors, and it's on and on and on, and it's shocking.
Happy people.
Yeah. It's always.
And what that does is it not only allows them to push their products through the marketplace, but it also allows them to control content on the network news. Most of those, the highest saturation of those advertisements are on the network news. Roger Ailes, who founded Fox News and who had a relative who was vaccine injured and knew what was happening. And I had I had a close relationship, very strange relationship with Roger Ailes. I spent 2 months with him in a tent when I was 18 years old in Africa. And he always, although our politics were diametrically opposed, he always was well disposed, and he would always put me on his network, to argue my environmental issues. I went to him with a documentary that we had just made on mercury in vaccines, and he was utterly convinced by it. But he said, "I cannot put you on my network." He said, in fact, I would be forced to fire any of my hosts who allowed you to talk about this on TV. And he said, if I allowed you on, I didn't fire the host, I would have a call from Rupert within 10 minutes. Rupert Murdoch owns one of the biggest vaccine company in Australia. His family, has been deeply immersed in that industry for generations, and he has partnerships with Glaxo and with all the big vaccine makers. Oh, he is one of the press enforcers worldwide, but in our country, Roger Ailes told me, Roger Ailes said during non-election years, during certain times of the year, 70% of my advertising revenues from my news station, from my evening news broadcast comes from pharma. And he said, typically there's about 22 ads on the evening news, and 17 of those are pharmaceutical ads. And there's no way, Anderson Cooper is sponsored by Pfizer. Erin Burnett is sponsored by Pfizer. NBC Nightly News is sponsored by Merck. That's why you see them constantly pushing flu shots, measles shots, alarming people about diseases and, about the horrendous threat of infectious diseases, and never allowing any discussion about vaccine side effects on any of those networks. It's completely forbidden. And that gestalt has infiltrated the entire, let's say, media industry in our country. I haven't been allowed to publish an editorial since 2008. As you pointed out at the beginning of this show, I used to regularly publish. I had to deal with the New York Times at one point where they wanted an editorial from me every 6 months, which is the maximum amount that anybody can put an editorial on there. So now they won't let me put an editorial out of anything, because they need to discredit me about this issue. They need